I was sitting on the couch, a loser, which is what happened to me after NBC, with nobody wanting to hear from me, nobody liking me. The right was like pissed about the Trump stuff, and the left was pissed off about the NBC stint at all, never mind how it ended. I was just sitting there feeling sorry for myself, Miranda, and Ben Shapiro called me and said, MK, get up. You got to get off that couch. You should come out here to California and take a look. They were still out there at what we're doing. And he wasn't trying to hire me. He was just trying to help me. So I went and I looked at the Daily Wire operations, and he got me so excited about the medium. I left and I was like, this is what I want to do. And it took me a couple more months to actually launch the thing, but it really is because of him that I'm here.
What a good friend.
Megyn is even more dishonest. I've literally never, not once, mentioned Megyn Kelly. Never in the context of Israel. Ever. Ever. My critique of Megyn on the stage was, why don't you call out Candace Owens for implicating Erika Kirk in the murder of Charlie Kirk? That was my critique on the stage. Comment on these things for a living.
I'm not mother of the internet.
No, but if this were on the left and somebody were accusing Charlie Kirk of his wife having murdered him, I assume that you would be talking about it.
Is that what Candace is accusing Erika of?
Yes.
Of murdering her own husband?
She's accusing TPUSA insiders and other members of the right wing, including Seth Dillon, of being involved in the murder of Charlie Kirk, yes.
Okay. Like I said, I don't take in that content, which is an honest statement. I don't have time to watch Candace's show.
I believe you. But And then she went on to claim that I was lying about Candace, and that actually Candace was even, quote unquote, defending in her own way Erika Kirk.
I said that Candace has been claiming Erika Kirk was behind the murder of Charlie, which I had not heard. And I was taken aback because that seems like something I would have heard. It's so crazy. And I have since learned it is not true. Candace has not made that claim. And in fact, I've now seen several clips of Candace specifically defending Erika Kirk and saying she would never make a claim like that about Erika. And that.
Well, that didn't age amazing, as it turns out. And then at TPUSA, I called out Candace and Tucker for refusing to call out Candace Owens for what she had been doing to Erika Kirk, for refusing to tell the truth on issues and instead programming toward the clicks.
Because you love Candace personally. The same holds true of Megyn Kelly, a person I consider a friend, characterizing Candace as a young mother and thus shying away from condemning her actions or fibbing about them. That is a non-starter. There is only one moral side here, Erika Kirk's side.
I did not mention Israel one time in the TPUSA speech. 0 is the number of times I mentioned Israel. So here's what's actually happening. What's actually happening is that there is a game that has now emerged on this part of the right. The game goes something like this. I don't accuse you of anti-Semitism. You instead claim that I did. And then you say, how dare he call me an anti-Semite? He's trying to cancel me. It's the Jussie Smollett of political claims. You attack yourself, and then you claim that I attacked you as an anti-Semite. That's absurd.
So I had no problem with Candace Owens asking those questions. And I refused to condemn her because I was under pressure from these people who wanted me to. And then that morphed into then everything Candace said thereafter, with which I may or may not have had serious problems, that I had to, where's the condemnation? And it was all really about the Israel thing. And I'd rather die than bend the knee to these people. I'd rather die than bend the knee. It won't happen.
I have never remotely called Megyn Kelly an anti-Semite.
I was very good friends with Ben, and then he attacked me, to my surprise, utter shock, at the Turning Point event in December. He thought that I should be lumped in as like one of the problems when it comes to, I guess, anti-Semitism, even though I have spent the past 2.5 years fighting anti-Semitism very, very vocally on this show.
But let's be real. The tactic that is currently being used by all of these figures is a preemptive claim that people are calling you anti-Semitic. And then they say, and I'm not anti-Semitic. Really, they're just mad at me because of Israel. So it's a two-step, none of which is true. I didn't call Megyn anti-Semitic. I didn't call Piers anti-Semitic.
Now Piers Morgan, like how many people have to go? Truly, how many people must be culled from the conservative movement in order to make Ben happy? This is ridiculous. And it's not just Ben. All right. There are others who take his lead once he calls you an anti-Semite or says you need to be kicked out of, polite society. There are.
I didn't even critique Megyn on her Israel position. In fact, Megyn and I have had many conversations off the air about Israel and the situation in the Middle East, in which I have said to her that I think that many of her critics over her policies on Israel up till now were wrong and misguided. In fact, I said that on her own show. But again, honesty is not a top priority for many of these people. The grift is the priority. The clicks are the priority. I stand by every single word I said at that TPUSA speech. There are an enormous group of people in the commentariat, an enormous number of people in this space whose chief desire is for fame and click. That is what they care about. And so their principles morph over time. Now, listen, I don't think Piers' principles ever morphed. I don't think Piers had any principles. I think his principle was always clicks. I think that for Megyn, maybe she had principles at one point. I'm not sure anymore. Because again, this would all stop very easily if, for example, Megyn Kelly had the stones to actually just condemn Candace Owens for what she's been doing. That's been my critique for months, and she still hasn't done it. She said she would die before she did it. That's her principle. Okay. All right. And again, as for Piers, I'm still bewildered as to why Piers is so pissed off. Seriously. Stop being a pissy little bitch. Seriously. It's really kind of ridiculous. I said that I don't want to go on your show. Oh, wah. I'm sorry. I said that I think your show's Jerry Springer. That you fill up the screen with a 6-box of people, none of whom you would want to talk to in a cafe. And then you have them argue with each other and yell at each other and scream. You have Cenk Uygur with his head blowing up like a red balloon on the air next to Norman Finkelstein, next to whatever kook you found on a street corner, next to maybe one legitimate person. And then you're like, this is a solid debate. Okay, you want to do that? That's your choice, my dude. You can. But I don't understand why it's not my choice to say I don't wish to participate in your dumb show. And why that somehow represents censorship. That is not censorship. You don't have to come on my show. I don't have to come on your show. Nobody has to go on anybody's show. And I'm not saying that people can't watch your show or that you should be deplatformed. The expansion of censorship to include, I'm not allowed to somehow criticize Megyn Kelly for her cowardice, and she's a coward. Or that I'm not allowed to criticize Piers Morgan for being a click whore. And yes, he's a click whore. Or that I'm not allowed to criticize Tucker Carlson for being a nut because he's being a nut. And that somehow these critiques amount to a campaign of cancellation or censorship. That's weird to me.
I'm so over this. I am so absolutely over it. Megyn jumping in did nothing but make the situation that much more convoluted. It doesn't really matter to me at this point. I want the truth. I want a nice trial. I want Charlie's assassin and anybody who was involved in it to be held accountable for their actions. But I also need time for Erika to heal, another conspiracy for Candace to chase, and Megyn can go back to doing, her show, and everybody can just kind of push forward with their lives. But at this point, it seems like all the pigs are happy to roll around in the mud, and it's getting very distasteful, very, very distasteful.
Yep, you are absolutely correct.